just a short question for Professor Bohins. So I believe that it was Germany and Slovenia who proposed to transfer all EU enlargement related decisions from unanimity to qualified majority voting. And Slovenia, as you will agree with me, is among the smaller EU member states. So how do you commend Slovenia to participate in something like this, along with Germany, who we know it is interested to get to transfer all this decision making to qualified majority voting?
Yes, I am aware of this political attitude. And for this reason, I have said at the very beginning that I don't share the opinion of others, including my own country. I don't agree with such a concept, and I think there is no real ground for such attitudes in the so far experiences, as I said, and I stick with this, that the real reasons for delay on this field has nothing to do, or has not so much to do with decision-making approach, but with many other issues. So I think there is no need to amend treaties, but to interpret it in the benefit of European values.
Only a comment. Previously, I noticed that we have two research teams focusing on EU issues, affairs, and I think your presentation, Professor Boyens, it was really a kind of connection between this, because this is also a kind of inner reform of the EU, the equality of member states, and of course also about enlargement. And therefore, I think it's a really good connection between these two topics.
I would like to have two questions instead of discussing, because I'm interested. One is addressed to Dr. Marinkás György. Does he think that if the theory on the multi-speed Europe is implemented, that could also facilitate in some sense the extension of the European borders, like the EU borders? And the second question, I would like to address it to Professor Prochaskova. I hope I didn't pronounce it incorrectly. And it's maybe a naive question, but from a mathematical point of view, or a purely economical science point of view, even though the growth rate of the economies of the newly joined countries is decreasing year by year, is catching up, real convergence possible to the Western European countries, or even from a mathematical point of view, it's out of the question? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I will answer, and then you let me know if I understood the question. The growth rate, the decreasing growth rate means that the GDP is, while it's still positive, the GDP is still growing. So if, let's say, both regions you are comparing, they experience growth rates, but the most developed one experiences lower growth rates, then the one growing quicker would be converging to the developed one. Was this your question?
Let's call them not standards of living, but economic standards, is possible. The real catching up with the Western countries of Eastern economies, mathematically, at least.
Well, at this point it looks like it's happening. Okay, the catching up is happening, and I think it's still, let's say, probably the least developed European countries will continue growing faster than the old countries, no matter what are the rates. Okay, so I think that convergence will be happening no matter. Okay, they can both actually decrease in terms of GDP, and there still can be catching up because you're comparing two moving targets. Okay, so while the least developed one is moving quicker than the more developed ones, there is still catch up. Okay, I hope the second version is better, answers your question.
Thank you very much.
First question. I'm not talking about, or I did not talk about multi-level integration, because at the EU we have some kind of multi-level integration already. For example, the Eurozone, it's an enhanced level of integration. I talked about the possible economic cooperation with these countries, not membership, as I mentioned. For example, there is the European Economic Area, which is constructed for this end. So they can access the single market, they can enjoy certain parts of the single market and economical benefits, but they don't have to fulfill certain requirements. For example, Switzerland was very refusing even to access or to enter into the European Economic Area. They cherry-picked the best parts from the single market by bilateral agreements with the European Union. So this is my proposal for this issue. I hope it answered your question.
Even if the theory of multi-level integration starts to be accepted on a wider scale and not only talking about the euro, but like being the official policy of the European Union, which is not at this moment. My question is referring to the fact, if this would be a reality, the multi-speed integration, could this facilitate EU extension?
So you mean that we should offer second-class citizenship for these countries, or what?
No, I'm referring, once again I will try to reformulate it, if it would be a reality, multi-speed integration as the official policy of the European Union, would that facilitate, or would then EU membership look more likely to countries which have not joined the EU yet?
So you mean that those already member states which are left behind?
No. The countries which are not yet in the EU.
Yet. I can't answer this question right now, or I think it's a very difficult question, and I don't want to say any stupid things right now. I think we don't need that kind of second-class citizenship. There are models for economic cooperation, and I think they can work good.
Thank you. Okay.
Other questions? Yeah, of course.
I will take advantage of this framework because it's something I can ask now, and it's a question to you. Provided the fact that originally I am from Moldova, and I have some, let's say, I'm living half of my life in the Czech Republic, but the other half was in Moldova. I know something about the context, and I would be curious about your opinion on something. Moldova, at a certain point in the history, was a member of Romania. So now, the nationalization policy in Romania is such that Moldovan citizens, they can reobtain the Romanian citizenship. Okay? And now the reality, we don't have official numbers, but what I found was that approximately 40% of Moldovan citizens, they have the Romanian citizenship. And Transnistria, as you addressed it, also many Transnistrians, they have the Moldovan citizenship. So that's kind of indirect expansion, right? Because you have, let's say, probably more than 1 million citizens outside the borders living, but they're still citizens. Can that be, okay, I don't have a specific question, but what would be your opinion on that? Are they other countries, member countries, or potentially member countries in the same situation? Is that relevant in the accession process, or anything that you maybe can comment on that? It's a purely personal question. I don't expect any specific answer. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Well, actually, citizenship is outside the scope of the European law. It is purely national competence, and Hungary had debates with some bordering states, with Romania and Slovakia, because of the dual citizenship given to Hungarian nationals in these countries. These countries went to the European Commission to complain about it, but the European Commission said that it's national competence, so sit at the table and talk about it, just the three of you, so it's not a EU competence.
Thank you so much. Other questions?
To Professor Christina. So taking into account, you're probably aware as an economic scholar about Mario Draghi's report, a recent report about EU competitiveness, and comparing it as a global economical actor compared to, at the first place, China as a gigantic AI innovator, and also USA. What do you think, what particular measures has to be taken in order to somehow decarbonize and be better sustainability-wise in order to be able to compete and not to lag behind them when it comes to a global scale economy?
Well, that's a tough question. I must say I'm not a specialist on that. I can imagine my other colleagues being more, say, giving you better answers. We have all this discussion around the Green Deal now, and to be honest, at our university we have a new program focused on Green Deal, and now we realize maybe that would not be interesting to students anymore because it's kind of dying, according to some. I'm afraid I cannot give you an answer. Okay, there is this trade-off between over-regulation and performance. So but that's my personal opinion. I'm not a specialist on that. I'm a bit afraid that this over-regulation is a barrier to quicker development compared to countries like China, where we don't have this over-regulation, right? On the other hand, that's maybe part of the European tradition to have some, let's say, to go for the regulation, let's say, approach. So I'm quite skeptical in the EU being able to keep up the pace with China and less regulated countries, but well-performing countries. But thank you for the question. A relevant one, but unfortunately, I don't have the answers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I know that it belongs to the previous panel, but I would have a question regarding the Republic of Moldova. And I would like to ask Dr. Marinkás.
But why me? Why me? The lady is from Moldova.
Okay. So it was mentioned the fact that in 2022 Moldova received very quickly the status of an EU candidate country, and as we know, in 2024 they passed that referendum regarding their pro-European path. So I would ask that this sign that they received quickly that candidate status, does it mean that maybe they will they will join earlier the EU than, I'm sorry for that, than maybe some Western Balkan countries?
So the question is still for me? Yes. Okay. I think that in the recent years, maybe the EU left behind its merit-based approach to candidate status. So maybe it was more like a political decision. However, I don't think that Moldova will, but this is only my personal opinion, I don't think that Moldova can access earlier than the Western Balkan states. I think due to its economical situation and so on, but please correct me, Christina, if I'm wrong. And now I'm cleverly passed the question to Christina.
Thank you. To be honest, I think the reality is going to be like this. However, last March I was in Brussels and I was speaking with the representative who was dealing with checking the progress in Moldova and Ukraine. And it was surprising for me to hear the opinion that maybe there will be some quick access with many exceptions for Moldova and Ukraine, but I take this more like, I don't think that will happen. Okay, I was surprised to hear that that would be a possibility. From maybe it was provided the context is changing. And I would say that from what because I do follow the public discourse in Moldova, and it is presented, let's say the accession is presented as an aim for 2030. Okay, if that will happen, I have my doubts. Economically, definitely the country is not prepared. If it's going to happen quickly, it's going to be a political issue.
And if I may have one note, so as far as I know, the referendum on the EU amendment gained only a very slight majority. And I also read analysis that if we look at the whole picture, for example, the rural areas were mostly against this constitutional amendment. So maybe the popular support is not that great for EU accession. As far as I know, the government is pro-European and they are trying to convince the population.
I would say that the surprise was that the rate of vote pro the EU was lower than what was expected. However, and now I'm going to be speculating because there are now, the proofs are just emerging now, but it looks like there was illegal funding from abroad, and guess where from, to support votes against. So there are serious suspicions that if this financial funding was not provided, then maybe the vote pro-integration was higher, but that's at the speculative level
I
now.
see. Thank you.
So some analysts say that actually it was a success that it managed to pass, okay, the referendum.
Okay, thank you for this interesting addition to the topic.